guys, how's it going? Today we're going to take a walk around the campus at our local community college to take a look at all the plants that we put in the ground and in containers and how they're doing. It's been just about a month, just over a month since we completed all of our projects, and I'm blown away by how everything is looking. Like, huge shout out to Rosa. Rosa is the gal who goes around and waters these every single day and fertilizes them, lets us know if she sees any issues. She's doing an incredible job. It's also fairly early in the morning and it's a Sunday, so this tour is going to be a little bit different than normal. Usually Aaron is following me around with a camera. Today I'm holding the camera because he's at home with the kids, so I could come down here in the cool of the day, also when nobody's around. You'll notice hardly anybody. I've seen a couple of people walking on sidewalks, but that's the benefit of coming down so early. You can kind of just walk around and I don't have to worry about where I'm pointing my camera and all of that good stuff. It's also supposed to be over 100 almost all week. 105, 104, 103. So we're trying to take advantage of the cooler mornings. And oh my goodness, you guys, I don't even know where to start. There are so many beautiful things. You'll see we're dealing with very different light in this area. Like, this part of the bed gets full sun in the morning. This part will get full sun in the afternoon, but everything looks like it's thriving. And right here is a great example as to why we use all annuals instead of perennials in these beds. Annuals look like this all season long. Perennials spend a good part of the season looking like this. These are in a position where they need to be sheared back, and they will bloom again, and they were gorgeous when we planted everything in here. But with perennials, you have to be fairly strategic about which ones you're planting and how you're pairing them together so that you do have color all season long. Otherwise, you do have pockets that are a little bit not as showy, which is totally fine, and it's something, you know, we may think about later on. I've been really thinking about ways we could add a little bit more winter interest, especially in the entryway beds. Those are the first areas we planted this year, and they look great for the summer, fall season, but then they're, you know, emptied out for winter, and there's not a whole lot going on. Thankfully, there are some stones and things in there that add a little bit of interest, but I think that there would be some room for like some red twig dogwoods or something like that at least. So it's something that I am thinking about. I don't know if and when we'll tackle that. You'll notice that we used a lot of cannas this year. That was one thing we used last year, not as many of, but it's one thing that they requested we used more of because they just really enjoyed them, and they are looking good. We used the Toucan yellow and Toucan coral. The benefit of this type of canna is that they stay a little bit smaller. So they haven't reached their full size yet. They'll still maybe even double in size by the end of the season, but they just stay nice and tight and compact, and they seem to be strong enough to hold up to wind. So that's really the big centerpiece color in these areas. There are, in addition to the salvia, there's some perennial grass, which is really nice. It adds, you know, a really nice soft touch in the center. Most of the beds have a tree, crabapple tree in them, and then some of them have black-eyed Susans, perennial, in here, which these will look good through the rest of the season. And then the rest of what we used are Supertunia Vista Snowdrift, Supertunia Vista Jazzberry, Supertunia Vista Bubblegum, like amazing plants. And I like the Jazzberry so much better with bubblegum than fuchsia. I think it's a much better pair. Fuchsia is way more of a warm pink. Both of these have the cool undertone that looks so good. Sweet Caroline Sweetheart Lime. I prefer the Sweetheart Lime sweet potato vine over almost every other sweet potato vine I've ever used. I like the structure of the leaf. It's very clean, so there's not there's not so much textural difference that it's, you know, I don't know. I feel like the ones with a lot of texture kind of fight for attention. This one just provides the cooling touch. It also stays very compact and very tight. It doesn't get super long and leggy like a lot of other sweet potato vines, and this one might. Like, by the end of the season, it'll be quite large and you can trim on it, but it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't throw out runners like a lot of the other ones do. You can see some Lady Godiva yellow calendulas. I used these in favor of the heated up yellow gaillardia that I used in here last year because these seem to hold a little bit better with less water. So they're both showy, both amazing plants. I was a little nervous about using these because these tend to be an aphid trap, which, you know, can be very good if used strategically, but in this case we don't really want them to have aphids. So far they look clean, and they just provide a nice little block of color here and there. And I tried to make sure that the yellow calendula ended up near the coral cannas instead of the yellow cannas. I tried to disperse color as good as I could. And then we've got Play in the Blue Salvia, which is just an amazing annual. I love it. And that will get way bigger. In fact, all of these will. In not too long, they'll be spilling over the edges. They'll be covering the soil. So they just don't even mulch in here because they don't need to. If you're okay looking at, drip lines for a little while and just waiting for the annuals to fill in, they just do that beautifully. So that's pretty much what we've got in the beds in the corner. There are 8 of those. So there's 2 over here, 2 on the far end, and 2 over here. We'll just take a quick glance at a couple more of those areas. Oh, isn't that looking so pretty? In the middle of the day when the sun is more overhead, we'd probably get a more even look in terms of light, but you can see what's going on here, and you can see beautiful representation of the color right here. Also, some of the heated up yellow gaillardia did come back from last year. We did have a fairly mild winter, so that was exciting. I was able to skip using calendula there and use it somewhere else. But we've got coral cannas. Now, the cannas, you do not have to deadhead in order to keep them blooming, but they do look better if you do that. And Rosa is really pretty good about deadheading. She'll probably be doing that first part of this next week. Oh, but I'm just loving the mix. I think it's really pretty. We're so hot and dry here, and things are usually drying out in the summer, so I usually lean toward pinks and blues and cooler colors because it does visually reduce the temperature. Oh, we got a moment of overcast. So this bed right here was the most full to begin with in terms of perennial interest and the tree, so I didn't have to use as many plants here. Over here, there are 2 beds that, 2 beds that don't have trees in them yet. So in those beds, I went ahead with the Vertigo Penicitum and did a grouping of those. Even though there's a perennial grass in here, these are so wildly different, not like so much right now, except for color, but these get huge, like 6 to 8 feet tall, like massive, beautiful interest, and they are a good space filler, honestly, because it only takes, really I could probably just put 1 in there and it would fill the space, but 3 just makes quite the show. Look at how gorgeous this is right here. Oh. Okay, so all of that was done June 6th. We came on May 26th and planted all the containers in this area. So we'll go around and take a look at those now. Starting with this one right here, rectangular shaped container where we used 3 cannas in the center, and then in between we used a salvia called Unplugged Blue, So Blue. And they're a little bit smaller statured than the Playing the Blues because I wanted them to be not a centerpiece plant, I wanted them to be an accent plant, and it's just working out beautifully. Supertunia Bordeaux right here, one of my favorites, and then Lemon Coral Sedum right there. I just think it's a beautiful blend, and it echoes the colors that we used in the in-ground really well, I think. So there are 4 of these. 1, try to go slow here so I don't make you sick, 2, 3, and 4. Next ones are up against the building. Oh, now see, we got a second where the sun is behind a tiny little cloud. So you can see maybe a little bit better what's going on here without the harsh light. Isn't that fun? Definitely a lot of color, a lot of interest. Now these, you guys, these rectangular planters, we'll start with that because I am so impressed with these. They are gorgeous. Look at these. So in this one, we've got 3 Play in the Blue Salvia. 1, 2, 3. And then we've got a Sweetheart Lime right in the center. See how nice that foliage texture is? I really like it. And then we just ringed around with Supertunia Vista Jazzberry and Supertunia Vista Bubblegum. And there are, let's see, I think I used 1, 2, 3 bubblegums, 3 jazzberries, 3 Play in the Blues, and 1 Sweetheart Lime Sweet Potato Vine in that huge container. And 1 month's time, or just over a month's time. Amazing growth. Oh, beautiful. Over here we have the Toucan Coral Canna, again as a centerpiece. Can you believe how much these have bulked up? I mean, just nuts. I love it. Another Sweetheart Lime right here. We've got Supertunia Royal Velvet, a Superbeena Sparkling Amethyst. I love this plant so much. I think it's gorgeous, and I think the name is perfect. Unplugged Blue Salvia in here. I think I used 3. You can only see 2 though. So 1, 2 on that side, and then the third one is kind of getting swallowed up here, which, these things can be trimmed away if you wanted to, but typically I just let things go and let planters evolve how they need to evolve, and then I just learn from it. So like next year, I would probably eliminate the unplugged blue salvia in this container because there's so much going on in it already. I always, well, you guys know, I always err on putting a lot of things in a container and then maybe scaling it back the year after. And there are 3 of these. So there's one at the end there, and then one over here by that building. They're all repeats of the same combination. And then there are 2 right here. And those containers, the big ones, are 25-inch diameter or 26-inch, I think. These are a 21-inch diameter, and I used a Angelonia. It took me a second to think of that. This is the angel face. It was supposed to be blue, super blue, but this is, I think, the steel blue, which I don't care. It's beautiful. Lavender color. And this one will grow a lot taller. Right now it looks like it's competing with the Carolee Petite Pink, which looks like it's struggling just a little bit. I mean, the leaves look healthy. There's some color, but you guys, I'm seeing aphids on these. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. This camera doesn't capture close-ups very well, but I think I am seeing some aphid damage, so I will let Rosa know about that. Captain Jack's will take care of the aphid issue really quickly, and we have to spray Superbells and Supertunias with Captain Jack's or BT anyway to keep the budworms at bay. So Superbells, plum. Isn't that beautiful? I love it with this Raven sweet potato vine. I've been using a lot more of that particular one this summer, and I just think it's a beautiful blend of plants. So just a quick walk down, you can see the other rectangular planter. Geez, that's gorgeous. Oh, I love it. There's a repeat. Now, how's this Gara doing? Looks pretty good. Now, I'm not really seeing aphids on these right yet. And then you can see the other big container and then the one in the full-on sun over there. That one gets protection in the afternoon. You know what? The salvia looks good in that one. Yeah, look at that. That salvia is totally keeping up with the blend of plants that's in there so far. Beautiful. Next containers are against the building over there, but the view up over these beds is so pretty. Also, we planted 3 Shawnee Brave Bald Cypress because of these 2 right here. When Aaron saw these last year, you know, the first year we started planting down here, he just thought, I've got to figure out what those are, and we've got to have some. And they are gorgeous. Gosh, I wish you guys could just be like here walking with me. Never can capture it as good on camera. Okay, so this side of the building is the west side. So this container gets nailed by sun. So I have to put sun heat lovers in this one. This is on the north side of this little, I don't know what's in that little building, but this rectangular container is in the shade for most of the day. So I was able to do very different things in these. I loved how this container turned out last year, and I used quite a number of the same plants. Like I used a Gomphrena Truffula Pink as our centerpiece plant here. And I just think they're beautiful. They get massive, like I'm in massive. And I'm hoping, I mean, this is the best I've ever seen an unplugged pink salvia look. Like this is the absolute best. And it makes me want to plant them all over the place because they look gorgeous. But I'm hoping that the Gomphrena, it's usually so aggressive, I guess. I'm hoping that we see some of the blooms kind of pop through the salvia by the end of the season. But I think they're a beautiful pair. Look at that bloom. Looks beautiful with the Gomphrena. We've got the sparkling Amethyst Superbeena again. Beautiful, cool color mix. And then we've got Cake Pops. This is the Cake Pops Purple Verbena, which, you know, doesn't have kind of the same vigor as some of these plants, but I'm loving how it's just like a very, I don't know, soft accent. This is a combination I would repeat at my house, I think. I really like it. And then this one, we did last year all Surefire Red Begonias, and it was gorgeous and beautiful, and those begonias Rosa saved. They're growing somewhere, but I decided to do pink this year, so the Surefire Rose Begonias, and then we popped a few caladiums in, so the Snowdrift caladiums, just for a little bit of added visual interest. And you guys, after we planted these, we had a night, did it get down into the 20s? I think it got down into the upper 20s, like 28. And nothing got covered down here. And this container was completely fine. I think it was because it was tucked up against this building. I had some plants, I had caladiums that got nailed by that night, and I had to replace them. And I was nervous because we put some caladiums up front too that look great. And we called down here, it was the next day or the day after, and just said, if they're, let us know. If those caladiums didn't survive, we'll come pop something in, something different. But caladiums are tough here. It's not something that northern gardeners, I don't know. It just, with unpredictable springs, they need so much heat and consistent heat, and they can't take any cold temperatures at all, that it takes them forever to get growing, and we have to plant them very late in the season. But they are a beautiful accent, and they look gorgeous with these begonias. Just such a pretty blend right there. And the last one back here is this rectangular planter that we did in all warm colors last year. So we had a purple fountain grass and like vermilion Arcufia and Gaillardia and some, I think, Supertunia red. Anyway, we did the cool color tone this year. We did the Supertunia Royal Velvet, the lemon coral sedum in there, and then some cake pops, which is not keeping up quite as much as I hoped. I put 2 on each side, and I was kind of hoping it would be a little bit stronger to pop through there. Hindsight, I would probably do unplugged blue salvia on either side, because I think that would give us the height that I was kind of going for. And you never know, I mean, it's early in the season, they're just getting going. This is looking a little bit more promising, kind of what I was shooting for, just a little bit more. But I like the cool colors over here quite a lot more. This area is just so sunny and hot, and then, you know, the building is kind of orange and yellow, and, you know, so it's nice to use cool colors here, because with the warm colors, it was a lot. It was a lot of warmth. Okay, now we are going to walk around to the other side of the building and hit a couple of random containers that are in nearby spots. Okay, we've got the 2 containers right up front here. We used Prince Tuts as a centerpiece. And then this is a caladium, which name I cannot remember. It looks like Chinook, right? I don't think it's called Chinook though, but it looks beautiful. Lemon coral sedum, which is actually acting a little bit more aggressive than I thought it would in this arrangement. I'll show you in the other one, it's kind of taking over. And then the double up white begonias. Aren't those gorgeous? The flowers are so pure and so bright, especially contrasted to those bronze green leaves. I think it's just a really pleasant looking mix. Take a look at this side. Isn't that pretty? Lemon coral right there. But I feel like this is a really good example of what lemon coral will do in a shadier location. It's such a versatile plant. You know, you would think all sedums need full sun, not this one. The color will be a bit different. Like, of course, it's a lot more deep in color, deeper green. In more sun, it's much more lemony, but I just love it. I almost prefer it being this deeper color, and it's just so soft and cushiony, and clearly loves this spot. Right underneath a locust tree, so it just gets dappled light in the morning, and then it's in the shade because it's on the east side of the building. Next up, over here. Okay, so this one right here, I planted like it was going to be in the shade, which it typically is a little bit later on in the day. You can see we're getting a little bit of breeze at the moment. Limetime Coleus as our centerpiece. We've got Hippo Red right here. Oh, the snowdrift caladium kind of popping through there. And it might just take it a minute because it was set back a little bit by the cold to pop through. But we've got a double up red begonia. And then we've got the Sweet Caroline Beyond Midnight, which has a much more bold leaf than the other sweet potato vines. Got an interesting vibe. Plus, I thought it would be kind of cool because it's new growth as chartreuse. I thought it'd be cool to have those 2 together. And then on this side, whilst trying not to shadow it, we've got another Hippo Red here, which is looking great, and double up red begonia, and hello, snowdrift in there. I feel like that container both years we've planted it has kind of been one of those, like, what kind of plants do we have left? What can we put in this one container? Because I'm not trying to match 2 or, you know, make sure that I have enough plants to create a cohesive design. It's kind of just like, let's just put something together and see what happens. So hence the red in that one, where I used pink pretty much everywhere else. While we're over here, we're gonna check out the entryway bed. Oh my goodness, look at all the color. Oh, I haven't been down here in a couple of days. Oh my goodness, it's looking amazing. Amazing. Look at that. So you'll notice a lot of repeat plants in here. We've got the Toucan coral Cannas as our kind of centerpiece. Now, the only plant that I'm somewhat disappointed in, and I should have known better, but I've got Skyrocket Penicitums in here. They do not grow like purple fountain grass. It takes them a long time to form up. I mean, they'll be gorgeous once they form up, but that was, you know, that's going to be a really pretty, kind of a centerpiece plant, but it just won't be a centerpiece for a while, which is kind of a bummer. But I have a grouping of 3 here, there's a grouping of 3 over there, and then a grouping of 3 in this corner here. And then we used plain the blue salvia around the back of the toucan corals and around the front as kind of our second layer down, because the toucans will get taller, so will the skyrockets eventually. And then sweetheart lime, we used a lot more sweet potato vine. in the ground than we did last year because it's just such a bright color. It almost counts as like a flower color to me. I just think they're beautiful. We use Blushing Princess Lobularia, an amazing plant that usually lasts some years till Thanksgiving. They just are tough, cold tolerant, heat tolerant. They just are great here. Supertunia Vista Jazzberry, and I think that does it for the mix down here in the ground. And then we've got a repeat back here in the container. So Plain the Blue Salvia as our centerpiece plant, and then the Sweetheart Lime, Supertunia Vista Jazzberry, Blushing Princess Lobularia. This would be beautiful just in a smaller container. One Plain the Blue Salvia, one of each. Just put one of each of these in a container and look at how gorgeous and how they intermingle. They're so pretty. Boy, I'm happy with this. The thing with this bed right here is I have to be a little bit careful about what I put in here. Last year, did I put purple fountain grass? I'm not sure if I did. No, I wouldn't have put it in this one. I think it would have totally covered the sign. But that's something I have to think about in this bed, is that I can't cover, you know, the sign. People need to be able to read it. So anyway, I think this is a beautiful blend, and the containers are looking nice. Now I did use a Skyrocket Penicitums as a centerpiece in here too, so it doesn't look like we have a centerpiece yet, but you can see it in here. I just wanted to try something different. I hate to use the same thing every single year, but sometimes there are those plants that you just lean on, like the purple fountain grass, because you know they will perform, you know what they're gonna do, so you can pair other things with them, and they're just a showstopper plant. So in all likelihood, we'll be going back to that next year, but it was fun to try. We did coral geraniums, not very many of these because you do have to deadhead them to keep them looking nice, like you have to come in and, you know, pop the spent bloom heads off. I'm just gonna tuck that down in there for now. So I use a limited amount of geraniums, but I do think they add a beautiful touch to containers. So that's our layer down from the grass, and then a repeat of the Blushing Princess Lobularia, Superbeena Imperial Blue, which is a new one this year or next year, but I've been really happy with the color. And then Sweetheart Lime, of course, and then Jazzberry tucked in around the back. Yeah, just look at that. I'm so happy with how this is looking. This one is looking a tiny bit more full than the one up front. Well, at least when I'm driving by. Maybe when I'm standing next to it here in a second, it'll look full like this. I did plant a container right here. This is a repeat of the one kind of by the Student Services building. So Super Bell's Plum. See, this one looks more blue. Angelonia Blue, Super Blue, the Carolee Petite Pink Gara. Not really loving this one right now. The Stratosphere White Gara that we're using in other containers is so showy and awesome. I just wonder if this one just struggled a minute with bugs. Anyway, and then a Raven Sweet Potato Vine. Last year I used red in this container, and it was just too hot to me. This side of the building, you know, it's just a lot of reflective heat, and then, I don't know, with the heat outside and then the warm color of the bloom, I just felt like cool colors would be nice this year. I'm really happy with the Super Bells. Been having better luck with Super Bells this year so far. Now we are in front of the building, and there's just one container up here, purple fountain grass. See how much taller this is already? And the plumes, they're just so gorgeous. Supertunia Vista Snowdrift, we've got Lady Godiva Yellow Calendula, there's a luscious Citron Lantana in there, and the Sweetheart Lime. Just a beautiful, bright, lemony mix. Definitely getting my steps in today. The next containers are right over there. Oh, the grass is all wet too. I have sandals on. I should have just taken the sidewalks. This campus is huge. I should Google how many acres this is, but boy, there's a lot of distance between buildings. I remember I went here, and I remember sometimes getting from one class to another. It was tight, time-wise. Okay, so this is a planter with a bench around it. This is one of the last things we planted. So it was after June 6th. I could look up the date, but probably just a day or two after that. We have Skyrocket Penicitums as our centerpiece. Last year we used Prince Tut, and then I realized that this spot really does get a little bit too much sun for the tuts. They tend to burn in our sun, so I figured the Skyrocket would be nice. I mean, look at the color. That's why I wanted to use it. They're just so striking because of all the white variegation. The wind is starting to pick up, so I'm hoping we're gonna be able to finish the rest of the tour. I'll try to protect my mic. All right, so around the Skyrocket Penicitums, we have Wicked Witch Coleus, then we have a Supertunia Vista Jazzberry, and then the Sweetheart Lime. Isn't that beautiful? Again, I think just putting one of each of these in a container, just the 4 plants, would be a beautiful blend. Gorgeous. And then we've got 2 rectangular planters just back from the one we looked at, which is right behind that beam right there. So there's these 2, which get a tiny bit of filtered light through the canopy of these locust trees, but they're pretty shaded. through the day. So I used the Prince Tuts back here this time, and they are looking so nice. There's far less burn on them. Really like that. So there's 3 of those, and then 4 Limetime Coleus between and flanking the grasses. And then around the exterior, there's double up pink begonias, which did so phenomenally well for us last year, both in containers and in the landscape at our own house, that I wanted to incorporate them down here. Hippo pink, which looks so pretty with that begonia, and then the Beyond Midnight sweet potato vine. And it's just a repeat of those 3 plants all the way around. Same for this one over here. So this one you can see maybe gets even a little bit more light, being a little further out. I really think this is a pretty mix too. I mean, just putting these plants in a container. I know when we're planting down here, the scale can be wildly different. I mean, you guys might be planting something way bigger or something smaller. I'm just hoping that if you see a certain combination of plants here or there, even if you're able to draw a little bit of inspiration from one of the, I don't know, things that we put together, that's kind of the goal for me. We're heading to the greenhouse bed next. It's fairly close. Here we are. So we've got Cannas, which one is starting to bloom. That's exciting. And I grew these Cannas in our garden in a container last year and then saved them over the winter and potted them up early to grow them on, and I thought it'd be fun to bring them down here. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like different raised bed areas, I guess you could say, all connected together. So in each one we did a Skyrocket Penicitums on either side, 3 Cannas, 3 Plain the Blue Salvia, and then Supertunia Vista Snowdrift. We've been down here to look at this bed though. I don't know if there's a water issue or something. It looks like the plants have come out of whatever they were doing, but they just sat for a while. And it could have been that we had the Supertunias in containers for too long and they may have been a little stressed and root bound and needed a chance to start growing, but they are starting to fill in a little bit better. I don't want to judge this bed too early because we really just haven't seen enough growth yet. But last year we did Vertigo Penicitums along the back, and then Supertunia Vista Bubblegum, and you really can't beat that combination. I mean, for contrast and color punch and all of that. But again, it's fun to try different things out, and we'll see how this one goes. We'll be down here again to update you guys to show you how this one's filling in. Okay, I'm gonna make the trek all the way back to the car, and then we'll head to the next spot. All right, so here is the second entrance bed, looking really good. Boy, I'm loving those coral cannas. I think it's such a pleasant color, especially with the Plain the Blue Salvia. There are some perennial mums in here, so you'll see little mounded green. That's what those are. But this is just a repeat of the plants that we used in the other entrance bed, so I won't name them all. Oh, except for the Superbeena Imperial Blue. I did pop some of those in here, which I think is a really pretty blend with the others that we've got. Isn't that pretty? Now again with our Skyrocket Penicitums, look at how little they are. So sad. If we had purple fountain grass in here, they'd already be up and looking really pretty. So, well, I learned something this year. There's more throughout this whole bed, and they make up the back centerpiece of this planter here. So we have a row of 2, 4, 6, 8 of them back here, and they're getting thicker. They just need to put on some upward growth, which they may do now that we're gonna get so darn hot. But we've got Plain the Blues in here, and then the Jazzberry and Sweetheart Lime. Really, really loving the colors. Oh, and the containers are the same as the others as well. We've got 3 more areas to look at. We've got 4 rectangular planters that kind of span this side of the campus. There's one way down there, there's this one, and then there are 2 more down here, but I planted them all up identically. So we'll just take a look at this one right here. These are on the south side of the building, so they do get nailed with sun. As the sun keeps coming up this morning, they will get into more and more sun, and then of course they get the radiant heat from the building, and these plants are loving it. Do you remember how little they looked when I planted them? I even talked about faith in planting and how sometimes when you plant things you think, oh, I need to put more things in there. I mean, I err that way, right, usually, but when you're planting things like this, like Supertunia Vista Bubblegum, like Salvias, like Purple Fountain Grass, you just know that it's not going to be long to where they'll be filling in the container and they'll be so happy. So one Purple Fountain Grass in the center, which is quite a lot larger than when we put it in. It's looking gorgeous. 2 Unplugged So Blue Salvias, one on either side of the grass. I just wanted to see how it would hold up vigor-wise with these other plants. You know, Plain the Blues is definitely vigorous, can hold up to these for sure, but the Unplugged Blue stays a little bit smaller, and I kind of liked the thought of that in this container, so I just wanted to see if it hold up, and it is. It's looking gorgeous. 3 Supertunia Vista bubblegum, so one in the center and then one on either side, and then 2 of the Sweet Caroline Sweetheart Light Green. So this one's a little bit different, same beautiful bright color, a little bit more of a lobed leaf. But in this case where I'm not using quite as many plants, I feel like that added texture is really nice. Didn't those just turn out so pretty? And they were planted last, I think. One of the last things we did. So these have only been in for a month. And that's what a lot of sun and Rosa taking care of them will do for your plants. Okay, we are at the gym bed now. Look at all of these. Oh my goodness. And you guys, I did take some pictures when the At Last roses were in full bloom back there. And they're little now. I mean, way bigger than they were last year. I mean, do you remember how small they were? They're all sizing up beautifully and they bloomed beautifully. So I can't wait until they get to be like mine at home, which are really close to the 4-foot side of things. So we have a 4-foot hedge in the back there of the orange roses, and then the front all planted up with beautiful color. So the next layer down is a Supertunia Vista Snowdrift, which is looking very healthy, has gotten a little bit bigger, but this Superbeena Imperial Blue, now that's what is impressive in this bed. Do you remember how leggy these looked? 90%, maybe 75% of the time, Superbeena looks really leggy to me when I plant it. And it may be because I leave them in the containers too long until I'm ready to use them, but these were so leggy and so root bound, and they are gorgeous. Absolutely beautiful, filling in a beautiful layer in between the lime sweet potato vine and the snowdrift. It's like a river of blue going through here. And I think the Sweetheart Lime really adds that bright pop that this area needed. If that wasn't there, I don't think that the design or the, the colors together would be quite as nice. Look at some of these At Last. I mean, they are just as healthy as can be, doing amazingly well. Walk down this direction, you can see all the spent blooms. Now, At Last roses, you do not have to deadhead in order for them to keep blooming. That was the whole point of why we put them in here. I wouldn't normally add, I think it's like 80 roses in here. I think. I wouldn't normally add that many roses to a commercial type landscape if they required a ton of maintenance. Just like all of these annuals, no deadheading required, except for on the geraniums. I think that's the only thing we have in here that has to be manually deadheaded. Everything else will keep on blooming and looking amazing without any deadheading, including these roses. Now you can come in and clean them up if you want to. I know in my own garden I would tend to want to do that, but I don't have 80 of them. I don't have 80 of them lined up, so it's not a huge chore for me. But in this case, they can let the petals just fall. Sorry about the wind if my mic's picking that up, but they can just let the petals fall and then enjoy the next flush of blooms all the way through the season. Same kind of cycle. Here is the rest of the bed. It does kind of curve around here, right around to the very end. Isn't that just so pretty? I ran out of sweet potato vines. It was kind of perfect though, because I kind of just pretended that I meant to do that. Because that's where the stones ended, but I was short a couple. But see how much better? Like, look at it without the sweet potato vine. Now look at it with the sweet potato vine. Isn't that crazy how much it adds? Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be very long until we start seeing some of these spill over the edge. I just love it. Okay, last but not least, the baseball fields, which are down this way. We've got 7 large planters there to look at. Things are looking good down here. Now I did plant all of these up the same, so we'll just take a look at these right here in this grouping, but each container is massive. I don't know the diameter, they're just massively huge, and they each have a tree in them. So in these 3, there are crab apples, and the one down this way, and the one down here, they are hawthorns, and then there are 2 on either side on the outer part, and those are crab apples as well. The other ones are on that side. And I don't know if these planters are just sitting on top of the pavement or if they're open to native soil down below, but the trees have been here, protect my mic from the wind, but the trees have been here for years and years, and I would expect that if they weren't open to native soil, if they were closed on the bottom, that they would be enormously root bound, but they are really easy to plant in. I mean, there's a couple of spots where you run into little roots, but I think they must be open down below. We planted Surefire Red Begonias as a back layer and the Sweetheart Light Green as our front layer. Very simple and clean, and plants that can both do shade or sun. And so far, vigor-wise, they're pretty much holding their own with each other. Take a look at this one right here, looking really pretty. This one over here, I think the sweet potato vine gets more sun here. Look at it. It is loving its life over here. Now see this kind of sweet potato vine, it sends out those long runners on the bottom, which in this case is perfectly fine because these planters are so huge. But in smaller containers, I always find the need to trim on them a little bit as opposed to the Sweetheart Lime. So this is a really good example. But yeah, they're just gorgeous together. Love that. And you guys, that is going to be it for our tour today. I think we looked at everything that we planted. So this is our kind of 1 month or slightly over 1 month planting update. Maybe we'll just come down on a monthly basis and do a little update for you guys just to show you how everything's coming along, how things are growing. And that's one of the fun parts. You know, sometimes your experiments like with the Skyrocket Penicitums don't work exactly how you would hope they work, but sometimes they do. And so trying new things out in different areas every year, it makes it really exciting, and sometimes you can discover some really cool plant pairings. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you're having a great day, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.